You can survive anything. Successful prevention starts with believing in yourself, even in the face of adversity. Let's take a look at how you can develop a strong sense of resiliency in the face of the global HIV epidemic.
Good afternoon, everyone. How is everyone doing? Welcome to the second day, second session. Let's Talk Wait. Excited to have you here. And there's truly no time to wait when it comes to addressing HIV/AIDS epidemic. I am Shubha Mamati, and I will be your moderator for this session. Our session topic is about Irrepressible. In this session, we will strive to celebrate resilience and positivity in the face of ongoing adversity to achieve global HIV treatment and prevention goals. We have three amazing speakers for this session. Throughout the presentation, feel free to ask any certain questions you have. This will be located in the Q&A section on Hopin. They will be answered by our amazing and inspiring speakers during our Q&A time. Our panel speakers for today are Miles Sexton, Shambhala, and Brittany Cameron. Without further ado, I will let our first speaker, Miles Sexton, get started. Miles is a sobriety and HIV/AIDS advocate, as well as a model and makeup artist from here in Toronto. How are you doing today, Miles?
Hello, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
That is amazing to hear, Miles. Well, thank you. I'll let you get started.
Awesome. Well, first off, so nice to connect with everyone today. And I just want to thank you all in advance for holding space for me to share a bit of my story and journey today. I think with this whole sort of section, what we're kind of talking about is resiliency. And I think definitely, being resilient is something that sort of has been like a huge learning for me in my life. I grew up in a super small town in Nova Scotia, if anyone knows where that is. And, I think growing up as a queer person there had taught me a lot about resiliency because I was sort of this very young, effeminate, male identifying at that time person. And, I think when you grow up in sort of these small towns, it's super difficult because I didn't really get to be able to hide, or I didn't get to be able to even have the opportunity to really discover who I was. I think my community of that town really told me who I was at the time, using words like gay and faggot. And it was so hard, I think, when you're such a young adult and you don't have that opportunity to really understand and learn and grow like everyone else into who you are, especially when it comes to your gender identity and sexuality. So, I think navigating my way kind of through my childhood and my teen years and as a young adult, I think, I really was kind of faced with a lot of hard times. And, I was able to, survive through a suicide attempt. I was able to move out of my small town and make it to Toronto. And that was, I think that was such a huge test to my resiliency of just really embracing and reclaiming my power and embracing my queerness and embracing who I am and knowing that that is my superpower. And so, when I was living in Toronto, it became this sort of time of, okay, I've made it out of my town. I've survived this sort of really dark period of my life. And now I'm going to move forward and I want to live in my truth, and I had the opportunity to work as an international model and makeup artist and, working with so many different celebrities and owning my own magazine at one point. And, so my career kind of really exploded and took off when I moved to the city. And then, I was kind of the universe was like, oh, we're not done testing you yet. And I ended up losing my partner to suicide, which was such another whole other kind of traumatic and learning experience that I kind of had to face and go through. And, that sort of really set me off in a huge part of my life because it really kind of remade me look at my life and kind of sent me back to that place of baby Miles again. And through that sort of time, I was really leaning towards drugs and alcohol and sex to kind of numb, I think, a lot of the pain and the trauma and the emotions that I was feeling at that time. And kind of through those actions, I ended up getting diagnosed when I was 27 with HIV. And I remember the day that I got diagnosed, and it was just like literally my world felt like it got flipped upside down. And I really didn't know a lot about HIV at the time, and I literally thought that I was going to die. I didn't know that there was these advancements of medical science that would allow me to kind of live. And so I think for many parts of that moment, I end up going again back to kind of that state of where baby Miles was, and it was really hard because I really had to like readjust the way that I looked at myself, because I didn't recognize who I was. I didn't feel that I loved myself. I felt like a lot of this reckless behavior that I had kind of gone through without education, really like really heavily affected me, and I think it really took me kind of 2 years of leaning into my emotions, doing a lot of work on myself, from like, just reading a ton of books on self-love and shame and vulnerability, and really trying to just like reclaim my power within myself again and my own identity, in order to really get to a place where I was able to push through, and kind of like release a lot of my own internalized shame that I had around HIV. It took a lot of work, and I really had to commit to that. So becoming sober was a huge part of that. I think understanding my relationship with sex and the way that I used it to numb was a huge part of that. And also like going and digging a bit deeper into my childhood and really looking at those sort of traumatic moments of myself that happened to myself, sorry. And I really had to kind of come to peace with them and be like, no, like these moments can either like hold me back my entire life, or I can like reclaim my power, much like what I was doing with my kind of the shame with HIV. And I need to move forward. I need to like embrace these things of who I am, and not live in the shame and live in joy. So that was sort of this huge kind of like full circle moment for me, when I guess it was almost a year ago now, that I publicly came out about my HIV status, and have just tried to be an advocate to kind of share my story and a bit of my journey that I've kind of been through to get to this point, because I don't think that I want anyone to go through what I went through in the process, because it was a really dark and traumatic time for me. And I think now, I think it's really important that we kind of share these stories of resiliency and hope, because, honestly, even though it was one of the, a very dark time for me, it's been one of the best things that's ever happened to me. It's allowed me to kind of really lean into 100% who I am, and live in my truth, and in my divine feminine, and allow me to kind of really excel in the world that I work in, and to have so much healing within myself. I feel like I have so much joy that presently lives in my daily life, and I feel so grateful for that. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you so much for having me.
We appreciate you so much for sharing with us, Miles. It was very inspiring to learn about your story and your resilience against HIV and AIDS. Thank you so much. We will now get along with our next speaker. Her name is Shambhala. She's the secretary of the Youth Advisory Board under Population Council and the lead peer mentor under Positive Linkages initiative supported by UNICEF. Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. That's awesome to hear. I will now allow you to speak and take it away.
Okay, thank you. So, my name is Shambhala Maria Diangamo, a young person from Zambia. I was born with HIV and AIDS, and I come from a family of two. My older sister is negative. Just for your information, we totally don't AIDS council, and the secretary for the Youth Advisory Board and the Population Council. So throughout my positive life, positive living, I have gone through all the stages that any person can go through: depression, non-acceptance, denial, and so on. And during that time, it was very, very difficult, not only for myself, but as well as for my family and friends who were with me, who were by my side, because they didn't know they didn't know how best to help me, because they couldn't understand what I was going through and what I was feeling. So the worst moment of my life I would have to say would be when I was in high school. Just a few months before writing my final exams, I was down to the brim, bottom of the barrel. I was in hospital. My family, my mom, to say why is this happening to me? What's all this um, issue? I don't like being the way I am. I just wish God never made me how I am today. And you know something? One of my neighbors came and taught me a Bemba proverb. Hopefully, my kinsmen will not kill me for pronouncing this wrongly. They said, "Ukutangula tekofika." It means to be ahead is not to reach. And that is something that has kept me going throughout these many years. And also just the thought of saying that HIV does not define who I am, and just the thought of the love, the care that everyone had given me, and not only that, the support that I got from the health institution, from the peer educators that trained me to be where I am today. And I must say, it's something that I advise every young person to do. More than one mentor, and those people help to bring you up, to build you, to guide you to where you want to be. They are part of the pillars that help to strengthen you to get to that place. And I believe that is one of the things that helped me to be resilient, to be strong, to be able to stand on my own 2 feet, even as I speak to you right now. And I can say that it's been 3 years now since I disclosed to my friends, since I disclosed to the public here in Zambia, and I've been called to different platforms. I've been invited to speak with young people, both negative and positive, of whom some I mentor, and you can see that young people are really involved and they really want to know about their status, but they just don't know how. And in my country, one of the issues that is very, very difficult to handle is tradition. It seems a little bit of a taboo, as well as sexual reproductive health. You cannot go to an elderly person to tell them about you wanting to access family planning services, you wanting to access condoms in the health facility. And that's where you get to find young people are indulging in promiscuous behaviors, engaging in alcohol and substance abuse, and just staying away from home, shunning away from home to be in some of the spaces that we have available that give universal health coverage to young people. So, as a young person, I advocate for sexual reproductive health rights, condom use, HIV related issues, as well as any other issue that affects the young people here in Zambia and on different platforms around the world as well. So, I can just say that during this period, I have learned to accept who I am. And then also the fact that there are so many other young people who I have seen going through different phases in life, be it mental issues, be it stigma, discrimination, and they always ask themselves the same question: why me? And I believe every one of us has passed through that phase and asked ourselves, why me? Why is this situation happening to me? And I tell people, you do not expect someone to come down and reach out their hand to you if you're not willing to be helped. You need to be able to stand up, because God says God helps those who help themselves. And I tell my young people, you need to stand up for yourself. You need to be able to speak your mind. If there's something that you want to do, do it. If there's something that you want to achieve, achieve it. It should not, your situation should not limit you. Okay, you need help. There's always a place, there's always someone who's willing to lend a helping hand, who's willing to lend that helping. young people that you can look up to, that you can go to help you, to mentor you, to empower you, because that is something that a lot of young people lack: empowerment, and self-love, as well as just the ability to be able to stand on their own and to speak out their mind, because they're scared of the traditional and cultural beliefs that are there, even religious beliefs, and that is something that should not hold you back. That is something that should not hold any one of us back. And I stand here to proudly say that I fully accept who I am. I've been through ups and downs, disclosure issues, denial issues. At a point, I stopped taking my medication. To be honest, I started throwing them in the bathroom because I just thought, I'm like, oh my goodness, what the hell? This is way, way too many pills for me to take. But now I can literally say that I'm one of the people the health facility will call to say, we would like you to come and see us so that we can undetectable, and of which it's something that we want the fellow young people following you behind to do, because we have seen so many struggling on treatment. We have seen so many struggling to just come to the facility for their normal routine visits and just to stay as active and as and to live a positive life as you do. So for me, that is one of the things. Those are the many things that I have gone through, and those are the many challenges and situations I have been through. And all institutions are willing to work with young people. They just need a reason to work with you. You need to give them a reason to show that you're dedicated and you're determined to be a better person, to be that young person that you know that you can be. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing with us your experience. I was extremely inspired by the amount of roles and your mindset in changing this AIDS epidemic, as well as changing stigma that happens everywhere. That is amazing to hear. And now we're going to be moving on to Brittany Cameron. She's the next person on our panel list. She is the current co-chair of Canada Positive People Network and works at her local ASO as the Peer Engagement Program Coordinator. How are you doing today, Brittany?
I'm well, thanks.
Well, I will let you get started.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So yeah, I'm not sure that I can see my slides, so we'll just roll with that. Ani Buju, Brittany Dijnakas, Noko Jivanong, Peterborough, Ninda Jaganesque Ninda. As introduced, my name is Brittany Cameron, and I just wanted to take a quick moment before my presentation to acknowledge that I am a white settler from the Peterborough Noko Jivanong area, which is the traditional territory of the Mississauga, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee people. It's my honor to be here today, and I wanted to start my presentation in acknowledging the lands on which we are gathered, or which I'm joining you from. And I recognize the land acknowledgement is only a very small part of cultivating strong relationships with the First Peoples of Turtle Island, but I commit to those actions, and most importantly, centering the voices of Indigenous people and actively engaging in acts of allyship. So today I'll share with you some scientific truth and some of my personal truth as we journey together over the next 10 minutes. One way to break the chain is to build the chain. And one way to build the chain is by building our personal and collective resiliency. Next slide, please. So this is just a quick overview of the points I will touch on today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am and what makes me an expert. Then we'll talk a little bit about U equals U, why it's relevant, and how it relates to resiliency. And just as a quick side note, while I won't go too in depth into my personal lived experiences of HIV, if that is something of interest to you, my friend wrote a book. His name is Jean-Paul Bedard. My story appears in it, and I would encourage you to get yourself a copy. Thanks. Let's get started. So who am I? Why am I here, and what makes me an expert? I come to this conference with lived experiences of generational substance use, homelessness, incarceration, and exploitative street-based sex work. I was diagnosed at 36 weeks pregnant and 20 years old in 2006. Currently, I'm a mother of 3, and I joined the U equals U team in April of 2017. Over the last 16 years, I've engaged in a variety of aid sector work, including public speaking, board work, and working at my local ASO. My friend John Paul, when speaking to who I am and what makes me an expert in resiliency, said, Brittany's ability to overcome both the systemic and personal setbacks she faced is certainly a testament to her ability to overcome. But I believe it is her insatiable need to take everything she has experienced and use it as a means to effect change in her community that is her most resilient asset. Next slide, please. So what is resiliency? When I started doing some research on HIV and resiliency, I found this statement from a study called From Surviving to Thriving, the role of resiliency in meeting global HIV goals. And I thought it was quite interesting. It says, opportunities for resiliency, apologies. Going to go back a slide. Stay where you are, moderator. That's me, apologies. So let's go back a slide and talk about U equals U and why does that matter, and who I'm here representing, apologies. So I'm here on behalf of the Prevention Access Campaign. It's a global community of HIV advocates and activists, researchers, and over 1,000 community partners from over 100 countries, uniting to clarify and disseminate the revolutionary but largely unknown fact that people living with HIV who are on treatment and have an undetectable viral load cannot sexually transmit HIV. U equals U was launched in 2016 by a group of people living with HIV who created a groundbreaking consensus statement with global experts to clear up confusion about the science of U equals U. The statement was the genesis of the movement, and that is changing the definition of what it means to live with HIV. It is a game changer for people living with HIV. It encourages access, reduces barriers, saves lives, and prevents new HIV infections. The movement is sharing the message to dismantle HIV stigma, improve the lives of people living with HIV, and bring us closer to ending the epidemic. Next slide, please. So as I was saying a few seconds ago, when I started doing this research, I came across this really amazing study, and one of the quotes I wanted to share said, opportunities for resiliency are created through the experience of adversity. And when considering the history of modern medicine, there have been few adversities that rival the HIV epidemic. Thus, the context of the HIV infection provides a unique lens through which to better understand the dynamics of human resiliency at each critical junction. Medical adversities have been confronted with determination, creativity, and even optimism, characteristics that today are touted as key internal aspects of resiliency, and that resiliency also plays out daily in the lives of people living with HIV, in large and in small ways, as well as within the communities of activism and advocacy, agents of assertive change, since the early 1980s. Similarly, and more recently, in Canada's first ever State of the Youth report, Justin Trudeau noted that youth in Canada are engaged, resourceful, and resilient. They are the leaders of today and of tomorrow. They are understanding the biggest issues facing our country and have the ideas and solutions to address them. The report focuses on the largest priorities, including finding truth and reconciliation. Indeed, time and time again, these statements serve to remind us that people living with HIV have always been a resilient force to be reckoned with. Next slide, please. So, how can you become more resilient? How can you develop this skill? What I like to encourage others to do is take care of themselves in a holistic way, paying close attention to your mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual or connected health. Build connections, find community, practice self-compassion, understand that we cannot be everything to everyone, and sometimes we just have to remember to put ourselves first. Take yourself out of your comfort zone, face your fears, and try again. Next slide, please. So, why U equals U? One question, how does it drive resiliency? So for me, when I think of U equals U and how it drives resiliency, I think of it as the ability to break the chain and build this up. It creates meaningful reasons to overcome obstacles to effective treatment. It opens the door to live and love life with the same mindset as before diagnosis. It encourages treatment compliance through challenging times to protect those around you, and it offers an additional layer of confidence and protection. Next, please. When I recently reached out to people living with HIV in our U equals U Facebook group, I asked them, does U equals U make resilient, or is it something else? Some folks shared they think that resiliency is an individual experience. Others shared reaching undetectable certainly does make one resilient. When I asked about U equals U contributing to your resiliency, and if so, how, one person shared that they had been undetectable for 15 years before they understood what that meant and felt little hope. Learning what U equals U meant to them and trusting the science gave them hope and changed their lives in many ways. Another person noted that it helped fight their self-stigma. And even though their doctor told them for many years that U equals U gave them the information to battle the stigma from others as well. It's quite clear, U equals U inspires hope, and hope breeds resiliency. So with that, I say, next slide, please. It's all connected. Your gifts, your circumstances, your purpose, your imperfections, your perfections, your journey, your destiny. Your HIV status does not define you. It's molding you. Embrace it. Break the chain and build yourself up. Take good care of yourself and each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brittany. That was very inspiring and motivating for many people, as well as informative. We will now be moving into the Q&A section. Any questions you have for our amazing speakers, feel free to ask them now. So this question is for Shambhala. How can healthcare providers support and empower youth who are living with HIV to manage their healthcare effectively?
Thank you for that question. So I would say healthcare providers, first and foremost, should be adolescent friendly or young people friendly. That's what mostly comes out here among adolescents and young people. They should never be parents. That's one. Okay? Parents, grandparents, we don't want that at the facility or at a clinic, wherever we go. So they should never be parents, should be adolescent friendly, and always welcoming as well as stigma free. Because one thing that has always come out to say is that young people in our community facility will not go to the health facility within their community, but will go to a health facility outside of their community. Reason being, the healthcare provider that side and the people there do not know who they are, and they feel more open to express themselves. So they need to be adolescent friendly, need to be welcoming, as well as to give the adolescents the service that they have come to access despite the age. And I know that there's still the issue of age of consent here in Zambia in terms of access to services. But even a young person who's the age of 15 years old should be able to get a service, be it condoms, be it information that is still considered a service. So you need to be adolescent friendly, engage them in activities that involve them, because there's a saying, there's nothing for us without us. So that is something that always needs to be put in mind. Any activity relating to the young people should be present. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a great response. The next question is for Brittany. How should we, as young leaders and youth leaders, avoid burnout so we can stay engaged for a long term?
What a great question. Thanks. So as I was talking about in my presentation, I tend to look at us as whole people and come from a holistic model. So paying attention to our mental, physical, emotional, and connection or spiritual self. What I'd say to young leaders is pay close attention to that. When your cup's getting empty, fill it up. Make sure that you're participating in self-care and other activities that contribute to your well-being and building resiliency. And I think the biggest thing, and even a hard lesson for me 16 years into this work, is sometimes it's okay to say no because you're tired, and you have other stuff to do. There's amazing leaders out there across Canada and beyond, across the globe, and others sometimes can pick up the work. It's okay to step back sometimes, and give yourself permission to do so, to engage in that self-care, because it's so important.
Thank you very much. That was such a great response. I'm just waiting for the next question here. Okay, this question is for Miles. Do you think there is enough discussion around harm reduction with substance and alcohol use for those living with HIV and how it impacts their ability to manage their health?
Ooh, I love this question. No, I mean, I think it's so hard because we live in societies where, especially alcohol, I think is something that is so part of like the culture, and I think that we sometimes are so like we use alcohol so much as a crutch sometimes to numb. It's like we don't, like as Brittany was sort of saying, we don't find these like holistic kind of ways to like heal ourselves. So oftentimes like substances and alcohol or sex can become those things that we rely on, to make ourselves feel good or to take away a bit of this sort of pain. So no, I totally, I don't think that there is enough conversations around it. And, even for me, like I was going through sort of like my sober journey and understanding just my relationship with my own HIV status at the same time, because I felt it was important for me in terms of having my own healing, that I needed to have a clear head to do it. And I needed not to have anything to obstruct it. And it was so interesting how, it was like very 50-50, that even the reaction to some of my friends, that like just the fact that I was now sober, it was like that was almost more of a bigger deal than for me having HIV. So I was like, what? How does this even make sense? But it's because it's something that is so ingrained in our society. So I think that there's definitely so much more work that we need to do. I think even just around alternative methods, I think for people to kind of like cope and process and heal through, I think, their pain. So yeah, so much more work to do.
Thank you very much for that question. I totally agree with how alcohol isn't a topic that is really talked on. And our next question is for the whole panel. What is one thing you wish someone had told you on the day of your diagnosis? Anyone can start?
I'll jump in first. I would definitely say that my life would be full of so much joy, because I honestly, I think in that moment I had no idea. I think just the power of how HIV would impact my life in the most positive way. So that would definitely be what I would say to myself then.
Yeah, I'll jump off of there. I would say this isn't the end of your story. This is actually the beginning of the next chapter.
I would have to say that there's a long road ahead of us, and there's so much that we need to do, and for both our generation as well as the generation to come.
Thank you all very much. This concludes our session of No Time to Wait. Thank you very much to our three speakers and all of the people who attended. Our speakers today were fantastic. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you at the next one.
Hi, everyone. It's my absolute honor to share this message in support of Let's Stop AIDS and the No Time to Wait 2021 conference. Being a survivor of various forms of gender-based violence, this mission and work is personally very close to my heart. Every year, hundreds of millions of children and adults are affected by various forms of gender-based violence. I was a child when I was forced into marriage and faced many years of oppression and abuse of various forms. After fighting many barriers and battles for over a decade, I was able to escape and build a new life of freedom for myself and my daughters. I started sharing my story because I knew that my story was not just mine. It is the story of millions of people around the world who continue to suffer in silence. And I wanted to break that silence for the millions of silences still waiting to be broken. Today, as an advocate and author, I am reminded every day how important this work is and how much more there is to be done. It all starts with speaking up, supporting victims and survivors, and holding perpetrators and abusers accountable. On behalf of millions of survivors like myself and the countless lives you save every day, thank you from the bottom of my heart. There is no honor in silence, and there is no time to wait. We must speak up, and we must act now. Thank you.